I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the Vietnam Veterans News Podcast. News of interest about Vietnam veterans from a Vietnam veteran. Now, here's your host, Mack Payne.
This is Mack Payne here with episode 1746 of the Vietnam Veteran News Podcast. News about the Vietnam War and the brave veterans who served there, as told to you by yours truly, a Vietnam veteran. There are some nightmares that never seem to go away. In this case, I'm referring to Agent Orange. It never seems to go away. It and its effects keep popping up. There are Vietnam veterans to this day who are suffering from illnesses caused by exposure to Agent Orange that occurred 50 years ago. Some veterans come down with symptoms after 40 or 50 years because the evil element in Agent Orange, dioxin, can lay dormant in a person's body for a long time and then just pop up. Trying to get help from the VA has been very difficult for Vietnam veterans for Agent Orange-related sicknesses. Finally, the VA recognized that veterans could be getting sick from exposure to Agent Orange and started giving benefits and compensation. Then they came out with their boots-on-the-ground policy that eliminated many Vietnam veterans from receiving Agent Orange benefits because they didn't have their boots on the ground. This mostly affected one large group of Vietnam veterans, that is the Blue Water Navy Vietnam veterans. As a distinct group of veterans, they were suffering more cases per capita and worse cases of the diseases. It took decades to force the VA to finally give benefits and compensation to Blue Water Navy Vietnam veterans. They're still giving them a hard time, but they came around. It took an act of Congress to do it, but they're finally doing it. I always thought it was a shame that it would take an act of Congress to get the VA to take care of the veterans because I thought that was their purpose, taking care of the veterans. We sent these veterans over to Vietnam to fight in that war over there. Many of them got sick because of something the government did. That is the unbridled use of Agent Orange. The government does have an obligation to take care of those people. Unfortunately, this nightmare won't go away. Now the Vietnam-era veterans that served in Guam from 1962 to 1975 claim that they're suffering from Agent Orange-related illnesses because apparently they used Agent Orange willy-nilly up there on that island. That island was the primary base for B-52s who were bombing in Vietnam. When the war expanded, they moved in lots more bombers up there, lots more people, and they figured the easiest way to get rid of all the native foliage there that was in their way was to use this wonderful high-powered weed killer, better known as Agent Orange. You know what happened as a result. Many of those veterans are coming down with these Agent Orange-related diseases. For some reason, the VA is digging in its heels and refusing to offer compensation to these veterans. They are still in the process of confirming that Agent Orange was even used there. I guess you have to do that when a large number of people want benefits. On May the 18th, 2020, there was a story that appeared in none other than the Stars and Stripes, titled, Agent Orange May Have Sickened Vietnam-Era Veterans on Guam, Yale-linked report says. I guess if they said it up there at Yale, it must be true. That's what they always tell us. I'm going to share this story with you so you can get a better understanding about what's going on with the situation with the Guam Vietnam-era veterans who are trying to get some help for Agent Orange-related diseases. I can tell you As a result of working with the Blue Water Navy Vietnam veterans for several years, trying to help them get benefits, it's not going to be an easy path for the Guam Vietnam-era veterans to do that. Let's see what's happening with them, and who knows. We may have to start another campaign for you to contact your congressman and encourage them to pass a bill to help the Guam Vietnam-era veterans. This story was submitted by none other than Seth Robson himself, a writer for the Stars and Stripes. He did a great job. Let's hear what he has to say. Dateline, Washington, D.C. Veterans who served on Guam between 1962 and 1975 were likely exposed to Agent Orange and other herbicides containing dioxins and may have valid claims to service-related disabilities as a result, according to a report by the National Veterans Legal Services Program and the Veterans Legal Services Clinic at Yale Law School. Just want to let you know, if you'd like to read their entire white paper report on this put out up there at Yale Law School, there will be a link over on the show notes for this podcast episode number 1746 at the Vietnam Veteran News Podcast website. I encourage you to go there and read that legal brief so you'll be better informed about what's happening with the Guam Agent Orange situation. You can also read it at night if you're suffering from sleep deprivation. It will definitely put you to sleep. I've read that report, and really all you have to do is go to the last page and read the conclusion. It will be there for your edification. Continuing with the story. The veterans do meet the legal standard for exposure, said the review of government, private, archival, and oral history evidence of herbicide use on Guam during the Vietnam era. Past claims based on service on the island have been rejected by the Department of Veterans Affairs, said Bart Stichman, Executive Director of the National Veterans Legal Services Program, in a statement issued with the report on May the 11th. Why do I not find that surprising that the VA rejected their request? The standard of proof is whether it is as likely or not that veterans were exposed to herbicide agents, according to the report. When I read that, I have a question. It says the standard of proof is whether it is as likely or not. That's not a real black and white standard. As likely as not. I think the VA likes to use those standards because they're a little fuzzy and it's easy for them to reject the claims. That's only my personal opinion now. Continuing. It is time that the VA acknowledge the strong evidence of toxic herbicide exposure in Guam and care for veterans exposed, Stichman said in the statement. Hear, hear, Mr. Stichman. The VA believes Agent Orange causes several cancers, including leukemia, Hodgkin's disease, multiple myeloma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and others, according to its website. The department also recognizes the herbicide as a cause in some cases of diabetes and diseases of the nervous system, skin, and heart. That Agent Orange was bad news any way you look at it. Guam served as a major base for U.S. air power during the Vietnam War. At the height of bombing operations during Vietnam, 3/4 of all U.S. B-52 aircraft available for operations in Southeast Asia were based on the island. Many of them were based over in Udorn, Thailand, and my good buddy Mel Jackson of Arcadia spent his entire career loading bombs on B-52s in Thailand. The rapid U.S. air power buildup on Guam created a pressing need to control fire risk and control growth with heavy herbicide usage, according to the researchers. Service members have said for years that they sprayed Agent Orange and other toxic herbicides all across Guam. Brian Moyer, a Marine veteran who served there from 1974 to 1976 and leads the group of Agent Orange survivors of Guam, said in the statement, So many of us were exposed, and sadly, many have already passed away with no recognition from the VA, he said. Like many whose Agent Orange claims were dismissed in the 1970s and 1980s, Guam veterans have been fighting for recognition of their in-service disabilities. John Rowan, national president of the Vietnam Veterans for America, said in the statement. Guam veterans now have an overwhelming case that will require the VA to finally recognize these meritorious claims, he said. VA officials on Guam did not respond to emails last week or a telephone call Monday. Well, can you imagine that? The VA did not want to speak to the Stars and Stripes reporter about this sensitive situation. Here's what the NVLSP and VLSC concluded about the situation on Guam. The evidence presented above demonstrates that veterans who served on Guam from 1962 to 1975 were, as likely as not, exposed to Agent Orange and other toxic herbicides. Both scientific and lay evidence, including the sworn statements of numerous veterans already credited by the BVA, establishes the exposure of these veterans to tactical and commercial herbicides. These veterans are therefore entitled to presumptive service connection for diseases associated with Agent Orange. Signed respectfully by Bart Stichman, Executive Director. The Guam Agent Orange situation looks like it's stirring up to be the next big battle in Congress to help our veterans. It never ceases to amaze me why the VA refuses to take care of veterans who are sick as a result of their service to the country. Their primary excuse is they don't have the money. That also does not make any sense to me. If Congress accepts the fact that exposure to Agent Orange and other herbicides cause service members to become ill, it's a no-brainer. Give the VA the money to take care of the veterans. They had the money to send them over to Vietnam and buy all those B-52s and all those bombs that were dropped there, and they had the money to buy the Agent Orange to spray it. They had lots of money. And now they come up and say, oh, we're sorry, we don't have any money to give to the VA to take care of the veterans. That is a sorry state of affairs, and a country should not do that to its veterans. The country owes those veterans a solemn obligation to take care of them, because when the veterans raised their right hand and swore to uphold the Constitution and serve our country, the country incurred a solemn obligation to take care of them as a result of their service. It's going to be interesting to see how this battle turns out. I hope it does not last as long as the one for the Blue Water Navy Vietnam veterans trying to get benefits for that group. Let's all hope for the best. That's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. This is Mack Payne closing out episode 1746 of the Vietnam Veteran News Podcast. Thank you so much for coming to listen to these programs. You are cordially invited to come again soon and often to listen to more that will be coming your way on this podcast, the Vietnam Veteran News.
How about that? Ain't that a mess?